Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of biology's absolute greatest mysteries, scar-free healing. Every time we get a significant cut, a burn, or undergo surgery, our bodies just rush to patch the damage. But that rush, it comes at a cost, leaving behind a permanent mark. So today, we're looking at some truly groundbreaking research that decodes how one remarkable animal manages to bypass this flaw entirely. It is literally offering us a genuine blueprint for the future of medicine. We're kicking things off with a pretty staggering number, 100 million. Because look, this isn't just some niche biological curiosity, it's a massive global health issue. Every single year in the developed world alone, 100 million people acquire scars from trauma and surgery. The result is this vast spectrum of physical outcomes, from thin surgical lines to severe, chronic, and highly restrictive non-healing wounds. That's 100 million reminders every single year of our body's inability to perfectly regenerate its own armor. To get to the bottom of this, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the scar-free Holy Grail, then meet the Axolotl. After that, we'll look at the metamorphosis test, dig into the secrets of regeneration, and wrap up with a blueprint for humans. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the scar-free Holy Grail. The medical and financial burden of human scarring is honestly massive. To put that into perspective, burn treatments in the US alone cost about $4 billion annually. In the fibrotic tissue that replaces our injured skin, it's just functionally inferior. It lacks hair follicles, it doesn't have sweat glands, and it's nowhere near as flexible. That's exactly why, as this quote perfectly captures, avoiding this fibrotic scarring response is the ultimate prize in wound healing research. I love the word coax here. The goal isn't to artificially manufacture skin in a lab, no. It's to learn how to gently guide our body's natural wound repair process away from panic and scarring and toward perfect, seamless regeneration. Which brings us to section 2, meet the Axolotl. To find a solution, researchers turned to the Axolotl. Now, they're already famous for regenerating entire limbs, their tails, and even parts of their hearts and spinal cords. But the major question was, could they heal a standard deep wound right on their flank? Well, over an 89-day progression, a 4-millimeter full-thickness wound completely repairs itself. By day 89, it's perfectly seamless. There is absolutely no trace of a scar. The pigmentation is back, the skin structure is totally intact. The animal has basically achieved what our bodies simply cannot do. So how do they do it? When mammals, like us, get wounded, we trigger a massive panicked response. We rush to stop the bleeding, we flood the area with inflammatory cells like neutrophils, and we basically dump extracellular matrix, or ECM, just to patch the hole as fast as possible. But the axolotl? They completely flip the script. They exhibit almost no hemostasis or scabbing, their inflammatory response is incredibly low, and uniquely, they severely delay their new tissue production. Essentially, they choose patience over panic. Let's move on to section 3, the metamorphosis test. Researchers ask a totally brilliant question. Does the axolotl only heal this well because it's essentially a permanent underwater juvenile? So, they decided to test its absolute limits. See, the natural aquatic axolotl is what's called a paedomorph, meaning it retains juvenile skin traits like these specialized latex cells. But when it's forced to transition to land, it becomes a metamorph. It loses those juvenile cells and develops a thick, mature, stratified skin structure that is actually much closer to our own human skin. So, the scientists wounded these terrestrial metamorphs to see if their new, human-like skin would finally scar, and the microscopic results, honestly, they were incredible. The terrestrial metamorph initially struggles, taking significantly longer to resolve the dense tissue than its aquatic counterpart. But here is the absolute crazy part. Despite that delay, both forms ultimately achieve perfect, scar-free regeneration. The superpower remains totally intact. Now, in the medical world, wound contraction is often thought to be the thing that dictates scarring. For context, rodents contract their wounds by about 90%, and humans contract them much less, usually under 50%. But check this out. Terrestrial axolotls contract their wounds at 37.9%. That is roughly the exact same rate as human skin. Yet they still manage to bypass fibrotic scarring entirely. So what does this tell us? It proves that wound contraction isn't the real culprit for our scars. The secret has to lie deeper. Which leads us straight into section 4, secrets of regeneration. If wound contraction isn't the culprit, what on earth is happening on a microscopic level that allows them to rebuild perfect skin? It actually comes down to a highly specific sequence of events. Axolotls rapidly close a wound by migrating a protective layer of skin cells over it in under 24 hours. But then, they just wait. They severely delay depositing new, deep tissue, that extracellular matrix we talked about, until days 14 to 21. It's like they refuse to build the house until the foundation, the basement membrane, is completely and flawlessly ready. This basement membrane has to meticulously reassemble in two highly specific sequential steps. First, the lamina lucida forms using a protein called laminin. And get this, only once that is completely laid down does step 2 even begin, which is forming the lamina densa with collagen 4. The axolotl strictly enforces this two-step structural checklist before any deeper dermal regeneration can start. No shortcuts are allowed, none at all. And while they're patiently building this foundation, axolotls rely entirely on weak inflammation. In a human or mammal wound, neutrophils, which are a type of white blood cell, basically swarm the area. They make up about 59% of inflammatory cells and just cause massive chaos. But axolotls? They intentionally keep their neutrophil count incredibly low, at just 21%. They simply don't overreact. They keep the whole wound environment completely calm and controlled. So, if they aren't using a massive inflammatory response to clear out all that damaged tissue, how do they actually clean up the wound? Well, instead of overwhelming inflammation, they use an elegant MMP engine. They trigger highly coordinated spikes in matrix metalloproteinases. Specifically, MMP1 rockets up over 400-fold right after the injury. These enzymes act like microscopic precision scissors, beautifully controlling cell migration and meticulously clearing out the wound, all without the collateral damage of a panicked immune response. And finally, Section 5, a blueprint for humans. By decoding how the axolotl uses such incredible patience, delaying tissue production and silencing inflammation, we are left with this thrilling roadmap. If we can develop therapies that mimic this exact process, coaxing human wounds to hold off on rapid tissue dumping, and carefully rebuild their basement membranes first, we could literally eliminate human scarring for 100 million people every single year. The axolotl has proven that perfect regeneration isn't about rushing to patch the damage. It's about having the biological patience to rebuild properly. The instruction manual is right in front of us. The only question is, how soon can we rewrite our own biology? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.